prior to Thanksgiving weekend of 2020, you could have forgiven many combat sports enthusiasts if they'd never heard the name of former Disney actor and YouTuber Jake Paul before. But in less than 1 year's time, he has become one of the most famous boxers on the planet. Paul knocked former three-time NBA slam dunk champion Nate Robinson out cold. People were then clamoring for him to take a step up in competition, which he did in the case of former MMA champion and UFC star Ben Askren. Paul would go on to dispose of Askren in less than 2 minutes into round one. After that performance, Jake Paul not only silenced many of his doubters, but he started to get called out by fighters all across the combat sports landscape. So who would Paul pick as his next foe in only his fourth professional boxing match? Enter former UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley, who, unlike Askren, has dangerous power, especially with his right hand. And it didn't take long before the trash talk between Paul and Woodley ensued.
I saw a man who just accepted a fight mostly for a paycheck. I saw a man who's been defeated multiple times now and who will be finished and sent into retirement by YouTube Disney star boxer.
Keyword, you saw a man.
At just age 24, Jake Paul has seemingly turned the fight game upside down. And his quote-unquote hit list features some very interesting names should he get by Woodley. Will the problem child put on another epic performance in front of his hometown fans in Cleveland? Or will Woodley dampen that hype? We're in for a fascinating night in C-Town, only on Showtime pay-per-view.
Oh, we're getting it popping this weekend. The latest edition where we're talking those crossover fights to close out the summer. Jake Paul, you see it, 3-0. While Tyron Woodley, the former MMA champ, ready to put the gloves on for the first time at the age of 39. Look, there's been a lot of chirping between these two up to this point. During the press conference, though, Paul not holding back why Woodley's the chosen one and maybe saying he's already looking past Woodley on to his next opponent.
Tyron Woodley, he really is the chosen one. We chose him to get his ass beat. 5-time UFC champion, explosive, knockout power. That's all cool, but none of that matters Sunday night. I am overlooking Tyron Woodley. You know, most people sit up here like Fury, and he's like, oh, I have a tough opponent. No, when I know what's gonna happen, when I'm confident in my skill, I'm already thinking about the next opponent.
I think we're all feeling like Tommy Fury there, just shaking his head as you caught a glimpse of that in the corner there. Now joining us, the Morning Kombat fellas, Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas. And BC, I'll start with you. Paul, of course, already getting another shot against a former MMA champion, Woodley here. Big picture, though, is this going to be the best crossover fight we've seen thus far on Sunday?
Yeah, I think of this genre, which has been celebrity crossovers, sometimes even circus fights with ex-fighters coming out of retirement. This is your best matchup on paper from the standpoint of action and from the potential of this being a very competitive fight. What makes this fight unique and fun is what we don't know about these two fighters. Can Tyron Woodley, with a decorated background as one of the greatest champions in UFC history from the standpoint of title defenses, make this transition following a string of defeats to end his MMA run and keep that same danger that he brought to the cage in terms of his big right hand? On the flip side, the question surrounding Jake Paul, is he for real? Is he legit? Is he a real fighter? His first 3 fights have equaled 3 knockouts, but only 4 rounds of action. We just don't have these answers yet. I'll tell you one thing we've learned this week, if we didn't already know, Jake talks a big game, no shortage of confidence. This is an unusual fight, an unusual direction for boxing pay-per-view promotion, but Jake Paul seems at home in this, and the fact that we really don't know who's going to win on Sunday night really adds to the drama as we get closer.
One thing you have to keep in mind here about all of this is not an exhibition. This is a pro boxing contest. When Logan Paul, the brother of Jake Paul, fought Floyd Mayweather, that was an exhibition, which means the rules are a little bit different. And what the judges, actually, there was no judges in that bout at all, so they're not even remotely relevant. But there was just all of these adjustments made to what is normal to accommodate something that would otherwise not be allowed. The Florida Commission at that time, you can't approve a fight, a true boxing fight, a pro bout between someone who was a complete novice and then Floyd Mayweather. So they made that exhibition rules to kind of make it work. This is not that. This is a pro contest. And certainly Jake Paul, there are questions about him, and Tyron Woodley as well, as BC indicated. But I just mean to say that when you have this kind of situation on the line and you've got the trash talk rhetoric and you've got really the stakes. I mean, Jake Paul is not trying to be the guy who can see how well he can do against Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition. He actually wants to prove to the boxing community and the hardcores as well that he should be taken seriously. That only happens really one way. You have to have a devastating win over Tyron Woodley. And of course, for Woodley, there is real redemption possible here and maybe another payday if he can get a big win on Saturday. But the idea that one guy's just trying to survive or they're going to finesse this and just make it look a certain way. No, these guys are out for blood.
Luke, you mentioned this. This is a real deal here. Of course, Paul 3-0, already has 3 knockouts, already claiming that the 4th will be Woodley. If this is a real deal fight, can he gain the respect of those hardcore boxing fans in this one?
There are always going to be holdouts no matter what. And even if he beats Tyron Woodley, let's say in devastating fashion, there are still going to be a lot of folks who are very skeptical. I was actually texting with a buddy of mine who is a media personality in my home market of Washington, D.C., and he is desperate to see Jake Paul lose. And of course, if he doesn't, we're back to sort of square one with this whole thing. I guess I would say, though, that if you do beat Tyron Woodley, while there will be holdouts, probably in MMA, boxing communities, every which way you want to look, the reality is this is a step up. This is an escalation in danger. This is a real athlete. And we do know that whatever else you want to say about Tyron Woodley, good or bad, he is an undeniable power puncher. He's an A-plus athlete. He's been a credentialed competitor since he was in his teens. So this is a bit different. Does that mean that he's the next Jake Paul, the next boxing champion, the next huge superstar who's going to take on all the known names and wear belts that matter? No, it doesn't mean that. But I will say, will he get some additional respect if he really goes out there and puts it on Tyron Woodley? I do think you will see some people come around.
Look, I think when you're talking about what can be gained from this, I think the fact that people want to see a polarizing figure get finished, not dissimilar, by the way, to some of the marketing strategies that a Floyd Mayweather or a Conor McGregor have used in the same combat sports space to constantly draw eyeballs. You're going to have people that are not going to believe you until you climb the highest of mountains. I think that's the pull and the catch here of why Jake Paul is so compelling. The fact that he's going to stick out his tongue and almost clown the traditionalism of the sport, yet act like a professional in his preparation and the way he goes into the fights. Yes, a victory over Tyron Woodley will gain back a little bit of that critical respect. But the fact that people don't think he belongs here is a big reason why they are going to tune in, and half of them want to see him lose. This is a unique circumstance. I guess the best comparison is to a Campbell Slice, who had a fun run in MMA trying to become a legitimate professional and did to a large degree. Jake Paul is in that lineage. He's also younger, hungrier, brasher. He's a must-see figure, whether boxing purists love him or not.
If you're Paul, the only way that hit list keeps going is if you keep checking the boxes there. He has to go to 4-0. I want to get your expert picks here. Both of you guys about 30 seconds in this one. Luke, started with you. Are you going with Woodley here or Paul?
I'm going to take Paul, but I'm just going to say as a very quick but important note, there are a metric ton of unknowns here. What does it look like when Jake Paul has to go deep? How does Tyron Woodley look when he can't have a threat for the takedown, when he wants to punch? I have no idea. No one really knows. Anyone who tells you they know exactly what's going to happen here is lying to you. I do think, though, the smart one is probably on Paul because he selected Woodley for a reason.
This is the first pro bout Jake Paul really could lose. I think, though, he's young enough, big enough, strong enough, and crazy enough in terms of meaning he's going to go after the knockout where he'll actually get it. Don't be surprised if this is the first fight where Jake Paul's got to show his chin a bit. He may need to get up off the canvas, but the size, the youth, I'm going to go with Jake Paul. All
right, Jake Paul, the favorite of this one, -190. Woodley at +160. See how that pans out on Sunday. Appreciate it as always, fellas. The Morning Kombat folks there, BC and Luke Thomas. Don't forget, you can catch them as always, of course, breaking down how this goes throughout Sunday. We'll see you on Monday. Download and give the guys a follow. Always a good talk.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.